Welcome. And in this video, I will be showing 6 types of watercolor effects that you might use in your own mixed media or watercolor work. And so if you decide to participate, oh, just a minute, let me jump back. The first square with the green was created with using puddles of watercolor and dripping on 91% isopropyl alcohol. 70% might work, but 91% isopropyl alcohol works really good. And just dropping on drops of alcohol onto puddles of pigmented watercolor. Okay, and now to the second block, I am put on wet watercolor, and now just with a dry paper towel, you dab away, and it just creates designs. It just creates random designs in the watercolor. Now this third block, I'm gonna wet. I wad up a piece of paper towel, and I wet it. And you need to wet it, and then you dab it into the watercolor paints that you want, different colors that you want, and you dab it onto the paper. So if you choose to follow along with this project this week, look down in the description box below for how to share your project if you decide you would like to participate. So this is just giving you 6 ideas of 6 different watercolor effects to use. Mainly not using paintbrushes. The effects are really made with kind of like household items. And then you might, for your project, you might want to use one of these backgrounds. Just choose one of the backgrounds for one of your artworks. Maybe you pick one background that you like the best. Like the green background, I actually, in a recent art project, did it in blue and made it like water bubbles. So it was an underwater picture of a mermaid face. This one that I'm doing now in the third block is good for like doing like flower bushes. So after trying out different or just looking at these different techniques, you might want to just try out all the techniques. Or okay, let me jump in here. I'm using Dr. Martin PH inks, India inks, but first I do yellow watercolor. That's just yellow watercolor, and now I drop on the inks, and it should be very watery. The more watery, you can even spray on with some. See, I took that away because it wasn't, and I sprayed on with more water with a water mister just to make it more wet, and that makes the India ink spread faster. Like, wow, look how good that bloom went with the blue, because it was extra wet, so that India ink really spread out really nicely. So for this effect, it's wetting your watercolor paper. I am using watercolor paper, and then painting on, make sure it's really wet, and then painting on dots of color, and they should spread out. And there you see the blue really spread out, because I think that was probably a really extra wet area right there. So that's a really cool technique. That's like almost like abstract. You might want to just like do an abstract picture with watercolor. And now for the final technique, I'm going to use a sea sponge. And I've heard from somebody else that a regular kitchen sponge works well too. And I'm going to wet the sea sponge. I'm wetting it with my water mister, or you wet it in the faucet. And then I dab it into different colors on my watercolor palette, and actually right into the watercolors themselves. And I'm going to dab on different colors. That too gives you the effect of like, depending on how you dab it on, But that kind of gives you the effect of flower bushes also, or just maybe a background that you would want for your picture. I mean, you could just use one of these watercolor backgrounds as a texture pattern for a background for your picture, or whatever kind of subject of picture that you want to paint with acrylic on top or collage on top. Or maybe you just want to try out these 6 samples the way I've done. It's up to you. And whatever you create, please share, and check out how to share in the description box below. So now I'm just doing a close-up shots of all the finished watercolor effects. I hope you enjoyed watching this. Please click the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and check out the mixed media tutorial videos that you can click on right here.